Be cool, be kind, be classy. The cupcakes so sweet and sexy. Have fun and enjoy the journey. Or just have a good attorney. No big whoop, no biggie. She lives near New York City. And not just a YouTube show. When you know, you better grab a straw. Learn about the law. It's cool here in the shade. Sipping motions and lemonade. Cool heads will prevail, kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Oh, Melanie Little is going live. Oh no, where is Melanie? Follow the island's melody. Is a concert within reach. No surprise, she's at Jones Beach. She heard some music far away. Captain Jack Stack Harbor Bay. He sings and his piano plays. Not all sounds are waterways. Speaking Yiddish or Latin, it's not just for Manhattan. It's for Goethe and Meshegas. Ridiculousness that insanus. Oy vey, Marcus. Proset, that's for schmucks. Be cool, be kind, be classy. My cupcakes sweet and sassy. And not just a YouTube show. When you know. Cool heads will prevail. Kindness will never fail. Be classy and vastly wise. Melanie Little is going live.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Whatever time of day it was, I don't really know. I'm a little spun. I'm still very spun about what happened yesterday. Pretty gutted by the whole thing, to be honest with you. And I still can't even process it. And I know you're feeling the same way because I see your comments. Fuzzy Cat said, I found myself crying off and on all day yesterday for a man I do not know because I saw how unjust this was with my own eyes. More people need to watch what happened. Elaine said, a verdict has never affected me more than this one. So unfair. Just feel there must have been something going on in that jury room. Annie said, I've never had a verdict drop me to my knees. Crime junkie. So very upset. Willie Brown says, I'm still feeling sad and horrible about this outcome. Karen says, us other boots on the ground are going to the sentencing tomorrow at 3. We're all wearing black clothing to support Edrick, Mr. Cruz, and Mr. Hill. This is a travesty. Live for Now said, I'm still so sad and heartbroken over this. I cannot sleep or eat, but I'm spreading the word. And Mrs. P615 Bunny said, I have so many questions about the jury. How could not one even have 1 point of reasonable doubt? Doesn't make any sense. I know many of you, and I saw your comments because I was watching Sylvia's show last night for a little while, and so many of you were you didn't understand why you were so shooketh by something that happened to a person that you didn't even know. And I'll tell you why. Because you're empaths. You have empathy. You get it. Injustice outrages you. And that is a very special quality to have, so don't ever lose it. Sylvia's going to be joining us in a moment. But before she does that, let's pull our affirmation for a badass because we need one today, huh? There's only a couple of cards left that we have left. I think we're down to the last 2 cards. All right. Today's affirmation for a badass is, some women fear the fire. Some simply become it. Okay. All right. Badass affirmation deck. You want to play? You want to play with us today? Let's go. Because not only do we have Sylvia coming in here today, but we also have Lauren coming in here today. She spent a few days in court. And tomorrow for the live verdict, I have Marie Pereira coming in. And if you don't know who Marie Pereira is, she's a pistol. I'm going to show you a little clip of her from Court TV from last night. And she's like me. She doesn't hold back. She has an opinion. She's going to tell you about it. Here it is. Some women fear the fire. Some women simply become it. You might not want to get burned. Can you see that? Oh, it's not focusing on it for some reason. There it is. There's that. Perfect one for the day. Okay. All right, let's bring Sylvia up because she's patiently waiting downstairs. I present to you, my friends, infamous Sylvia.
Hey, everybody. Hey,
Hi.
Mel.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I mean, the only good thing that I can say about this trial is that it brought us together because we didn't know each other before this, and so I am pleasured. I'm pleased and honored that you would come on the show to help me talk the viewers down, because I think so many people are feeling so gutted. I mean, I'm just gutted by this, and I think many people in the chat feel the same way, and I know that you do. So if there are some people in the chat who aren't familiar with you and your work, why don't you tell them and us a little bit about yourself, as much as you're comfortable with, and how you sort of got into going to court and handling these cases, and what it is that you do here.
Well, my dream was to become a lawyer. Oh, really? But because I hate reading, I said, nah, I'm a math person. So this is like my second life dream of being in a courtroom. And I like doing it this way instead of having to be in front of a judge, having to abide by all the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It would have been hard for me to be in that courtroom. I would have been like Brian Steele getting handcuffed and taken out of that courtroom. Did you go to any of the pretrial hearings, or did you start?
No, what happened is someone sent me this case and they sent me your channel. Oh. And I started watching you in the bushes for a little while. And then when I think Karen mentioned about her going down there, and that's when I text, I put it in your chat that I was going to go down there. But that's how I found out about this case, through you.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. I mean, that's great. What was the first day that you went to court?
I went to court the day that you guys saw me. I think that was on the 9th of February.
That was the same day that you filed the Rule 22. That was Chris Melton's testimony day, right?
Yes, that same day. Yes.
What a day to be there, huh?
Mm-hmm. It was.
I just can't wait to hear everything from you. But what I want to hear, what I think we should do first, Lauren's going to join us, I think, around 4:30. Let's watch the verdict again together. And I want to hear your observations of the jury when after they read this. We'll watch it first. It's not very long. And also your observations of both families and what you observed in the courtroom. Okay. And I think since there may be some people who haven't seen it, it's painful to watch again, but it needs to be done because the world needs to know about this case. There are some people now who are jumping in to help pro bono, and I think that is amazing. But you and I both know how long appeals take. And the time to help would have been before this man was convicted, and it just breaks my heart. Here we go. Here's Judge Lisa Lott. She's a lot, and this is the verdict from yesterday afternoon.
But I'm instructing all of you again, I'm instructing all of you again that this is a court of law and everyone is to remain calm. Thank you. You may bring the jury out.
Where were you positioned in the courtroom when they came out with the verdict?
I was on the front row behind the, right by the jurors. It was on the right-hand side if you walk in straight into the courtroom.
Okay, right. So that was the side that Tara's family was sitting on?
Yes.
And that's where the media was, because you got your Rule 22. I found your filing this morning at the court file. Yes. So you could see Edrick as they were reading the verdict?
Yes.
Did you have a view of him? And you could also see the jury as well?
Yes.
It must have been hard deciding where to look. Okay, moving on. Oh, the waiting is always the hardest part. The tension, was the tension
Thank
palpable?
you. You all may be seated. Madam Foreperson, I understand the jury has reached a verdict. Is that correct? Would you please hand it to Mr. Terrell? The court will look it over first. Then I'm going to hand it back to you, Madam Foreperson, to read it out loud, called publishing.
As the jury walked in, as you saw the jury walk in, did you notice anything about their expressions or who they were looking at, or were they looking down or anything like that?
They were very somber coming in, and there was one particular juror that I was looking at, and she she had, she was crying before, when they were reviewing the videos. And when she came through, she never looked towards any of the family. She didn't look towards us. She just looked straight on. And then when they were reading the verdict, she looked down.
And which did she cry again?
She just looked sad. She just looked very sad. But that's the juror that I felt that was always not for the defense.
You thought she was pro prosecution?
Yeah, from day one when I walked.
So when she was crying, watching the interrogation video.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean? Yeah, when they came out and asked to see that again.
Mm-hmm. And then she had touched the guy in front of her and told him to relax. She rubbed him on his shoulders, told him to relax. So,
in open court. Thank you.
Everyone just pay attention, because what I noticed most about when she started to read this, the forewoman, she took a deep breath, and you could hear that her voice was cracking. Did it look to you like she was visibly shaken or visibly shaking or crying or anything?
No.
Like that?
She was on emotionless to me.
Really?
From a person. So when everyone was saying she sounded like her voice is cracking, I was like, really?
Yeah, it's interesting because you saw her. We couldn't see her. And this is what I noticed. Like she kind of took a deep breath. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm sure you've listened to it again, but here we go.
All right, Madam Foreperson, if you would read the verdict from top to bottom, you may remain seated. If it's easier for you to stand, you certainly can. If you'll pull that microphone in front of you down to you, read it from top to bottom. It is called, again, publishing the verdict. Thank you. You may proceed.
Okay. The jury finds the defendant on the following counts. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, felony murder, guilty.
Just notice how Justin Hill, he's from YSL, right?
Yes.
Because you covered YSL. And Edrick Faust, zero reaction. Although look at Justin Hill now, like his eyes looking over.
Straight over, yeah.
To Cruz, right? And he's just like, they know they're not supposed to show any emotion. And I'm sure that they instructed Edrick also to show zero emotion, but it's so hard to do. And I didn't hear any outbursts from the gallery. Did anybody? I mean, we saw in another trial where the mother got up or somebody got up and fainted, right as the verdict was read in the gallery.
They started crying. The family behind me started crying.
Tara Baker's family.
Mm-hmm.
What about Edrick's family?
I know your cupcake. 2 of your cupcake. I mean, their face was just like, and they just looked down. But his family, they were shaking their head, and one person got up and walked out.
Wow.
Count 4, felony murder, guilty. Count 5, felony murder, guilty. Count 6, burglary, guilty. Count 7, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 8, rape, guilty. Count 9, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 10, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 11, arson in the first degree, guilty. Count 12, possession of a knife during commission of a felony, guilty.
All right, Madam Foreperson, if you would present that verdict to our bailiff, Mr. Terrell, if you'll bring it.
And then they go on to poll the jury, and each juror had to say whether that was their verdict and whether that was their verdict in the jury room. And then they've set the sentencing for tomorrow at 3:00. Will you be attending the sentencing?
Yes, I will.
I still can't wrap my head around it. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
I was trying to figure out, okay, the DNA was a thing that got them. How do you come with the conclusion of the sodomy and the grape? And I just couldn't understand it. I couldn't.
They couldn't even show that he was inside the house.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it.
The only alleged DNA that he had of his was on her body.
in her mouth, right?
Yeah.
Not on the outside. But the thing is, I listened to the when he was doing the opening argument, he started talking about the Mexican restaurant part, and that's when the judge stopped him and gave him the fine and all that. And I'm trying to figure out, why was he not allowed to do it in opening argument?
Maybe because she hadn't ruled on whether she was going to allow that witness to testify yet or not, because I think there were a number of pretrial rulings that had not been decided. And I think that was one of the witnesses that Mr. Cruz wanted to put on. And that's before he decided to not even put on a case. There was a woman, remember, there was a woman who was going to testify that she saw Tara Baker in the bathroom and with some friends or something and overheard her talking.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, was he going to say that he maybe met her at that Mexican restaurant and that's how maybe they did consensually hook up or make out or whatever, and that could have been how his DNA got in her mouth? But he never could have taken the stand because it would have been too damaging to him, opening up the door to all of his convictions and things like that.
And the thing is, they used the last part of what he says, "Take me to jail." That is what they hung on at the end. And as they were watching the video, I was watching their facial expression, and they hung on that when he said, "Take me to jail."
You could see, meaning you could see their expressions in the courtroom, or were you able to talk to any of the jurors after the trial?
They left before I can even get to any of them.
Have any of them spoken out that you've seen?
No.
I haven't been able to find any interviews with any of them,
No.
but you could just tell from their facial expressions that that's your gut on what they were going by.
I knew they were gonna. I'm telling you, there was that one individual, and I kept calling her the troublesome one. I knew, regardless without a shadow of a doubt, I knew she was totally against the defense. And then when Mr. Cruz was, had him going up and down, I saw their facial expression. They were annoyed, really annoyed with him. So I was like, oh, he's pissed him off.
You mean because they had to go in and out of the room?
Remember when they came in, and then he says to the judge, I want to speak about something. The judge took him out. Then the judge brought him back in. Then he got up again and says, I need to make a motion. They went back out. Then they came back in one more time, and then they went back out. And then the last time they came back in, they were like, their face was livid. They were pissed.
And that was right before they were shown the interrogation video?
That was a day before. That was the day before. Interrogation video came the next day, I believe.
I took him saying, "Take me to jail," to mean, oh, I know how this is going to go.
That's
my DNA? You're saying that's my DNA? Okay, just take me to jail.
That's the way I took it too. But the way the state says, like, oh, as if he's guilty, he's saying, "Take me to jail," type of thing.
Anybody who's ever been in the system or knows anybody who's ever been in the system or knows anything about racial bias knows this guy's being interrogated. And you tell me if I'm wrong. He's being interrogated by two white, cold case detectives who aren't even telling him why he's there. And I think that he thought these warrants must have been for something else. But if a man is sitting there and he knows that he murdered this girl 25 years ago, don't you think he would have lawyered up right away and said, I'm not saying anything? And thinking to himself like, oh, they finally caught me.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is that I looked at Liz when they were doing the looking at the video and looking at the DNA. She was very, very nervous. I mean, she changed seats so many times. I was like, okay, why don't you just stay still? She was really nervous, and she was texting back and forth, texting. And then the next minute she sat back there with Jeremy and she was talking to him, and she kept looking at the juror. She kept looking at him. She was very, very nervous, And one thing I did happen to see when the bailiff went to the back of the room, right? And there was one Hispanic juror that was there. when she went to the door, they opened it because you could see everything. You could see the jurors, and I believe the jurors can hear everything that's going on inside the courtroom.
Oh, really? That's how close the jury room was.
Yeah, the room is like right behind the judge thing. So anytime there's unless they have soundproof noise, the canceling noise thing.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, they can hear everything that's going on because they're on the mic and everything. So when she opened up the door, the Hispanic juror was up, and I saw him motioning, telling them certain things. He was talking to the others, right? And then they came out. The older white guy, he was the one that had the DNA. He had it for a long time. He was reading it a long time. He was going line by line because I saw his fingers going line by line. Because I was sitting, I was this close to them. I could see it.
Wow.
So he was looking at line by line by line. And then after he finished, he took, and mind you, this is a man that most of the time his eyes was closed.
Do you think he was sleeping, or do you think he was just concentrating?
I thought he was concentrating.
Yeah.
His eyes was closed. He listens with his eyes closed.
Some people do that. Yeah. I didn't find that unusual at all.
Yeah. So then, because at first the one that it was the foreperson, she was sitting in the back when I first came. And then when they moved the other one, she moved towards the front.
They didn't have assigned seats, right? Every time they came in, they could sit wherever they wanted.
Yeah, but they sat in the same spot until the other ones left, and then they sat there. The three they took off was 2 black women and then one young white guy. They took them out.
Well, they knew going in that they were going to be alternates. That's my understanding. They didn't choose alternates at the end. Some states like Massachusetts choose them at the end. In New York, when we pick a jury, we know who the alternates are going to be. So you pick your main jury and then you pick the alternates.
Yeah, usually they go last and the numbers are usually higher. That's how I find out which one it is.
Yeah. So it turned out that the 3 alternates were all women, right?
No, one white guy and 2 black women.
Okay.
So it was 3 black women originally. It was 3 black women. It was 1 black guy, and then it was 7 white guys, 1 Spanish guy, and 3 white women.
And 3 of the men had ponytails, you were telling me, I think, right? Did you tell me that, or someone else?
Yeah, I told you that. It was 3 ponytails.
Let's take a look at the difference in the way that the media handled this. I was only able to find 2 local stations who even covered it yesterday. The first one, this is from 11 Alive.
Jennifer Bellamy, just hours ago, an Athens jury returned a guilty verdict for Edrick Faust in the 2001 murder of UGA law student Tara Baker. Our Molly Oak is at the Athens Clarke County Courthouse. Molly, this has been something for the family of Tara Baker that they have been waiting on for more than 25 years.
Tara Baker's mom was in tears as she exited the courtroom. People close to her say this was a moment of healing for the family.
Malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty.
At 1:20 today, a jury found Edrick Faust guilty on all counts in the January 2001 murder of first-year UGA law student Tara Baker. During the trial, prosecutors said DNA evidence showed 48-year-old Faust sexually assaulted, stabbed, and strangled the then 23-year-old Baker before setting her bed on fire. The defense argued just because Faust's DNA was in her body, it doesn't mean Faust is the killer. The jury of 12 decided Faust is guilty. Today, a spokesperson for the Bakers told 11 Alive what this verdict means to the family.
This is a full circle.
Look who the spokesperson for the family is. You know who that is?
Yeah, that's the guy who does the podcast.
Yeah, the guy who did the podcast, Cameron J. And I don't know if he knew did he know the family before he started the podcast?
I know the situation is what brought him to doing the podcast.
Right. And also on his website, he said he's good friends with Chris Melton still to this day. And he took a bunch of the episodes down, like all of the episodes that he had pointing fingers at other suspects, like the lawyer that she was going out to dinner with a couple of times. And I think there was a law student who was in one of her study groups, because I think there were 3 white guys that have been suspects throughout the years, all of them white. And we never got to hear about any of those at trial. But this is the guy, Cameron J., who does the Crime City podcast. And he's, I guess, I don't know if he's the self-appointed spokesperson for the family or they anointed him. I don't know. Do you?
I think from what I was hearing, I think the mother and him became pretty close, Tara's mother.
Okay.
And she relied on him on spreading the information.
Okay.
Spokesperson for the Bakers told 11 Alive what this verdict means to the family.
This is a full circle moment for Tara. Tara was a champion of the underdog. She was bold, bright student at the University of Georgia studying law, and it's been not lost on anyone that justice has escaped her, being an advocate of justice for the last 25 years. So for the family today, I believe this is a moment of honoring Tara and her life and her memory and encouraging people to reflect back on the woman that she was.
As for Faust, he was shaking his head as the verdict was read. His sentencing will be Thursday afternoon. That's also when we're expected to hear from the Baker family. Reporting in Athens, Molly Oak, 11 Alive News.
Tara Baker was a fierce advocate for justice. Do you think that she's happy with this verdict?
I don't think so, because she knows who did it.
Yeah.
She knows
right.
who did it. And my observation of the family, the crying didn't seem as if it was relief of it, but I guess they got somebody, and so I don't know. I didn't see them like jumping for joy, saying yes. You know how you've seen people when somebody is in a verdict and they happy of the verdict. It didn't seem like that. It was more of like a relief, but I don't know. I don't think who was happy. Liz. Mm-hmm. She was smiling.
Liz was happy.
Very happy. She was very happy. She was the only one that I saw smiling.
Well, I mean, isn't this going to make her career? She solved the first cold case under the Coleman-Baker Act, and it happened to be the murder of Tara Baker. But in my opinion, it's not justice for Tara Baker if they got the wrong guy.
Did you ever hear about the piping being taken out of the sink? That's what I found out when I was there.
Now tell me.
They said the pipe in the kitchen where the fire was, someone ripped the pipes out.
Like the fire department, or after the fire, or before the fire?
Before the fire.
Oh.
That's an evidence that, and I learned that from the people in the area at the time.
They didn't talk about it during the trial, though, did they? No, Tiff, they didn't, right?
They did not.
They talked about it on his podcast, or where?
The individuals that was there in the area and during that time.
Well, we know because we watch a lot of true crime that oftentimes blood is found in the drains. And so if somebody washed their hands before they left and wiped down all the things, they might have taken that pipe where they washed their hands so that their blood mixed with Tara's blood wouldn't have been found.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Sure. They take out drains in a lot of cases. I mean, we see here with like the Long Island serial killer, they were taking out all the drains. Oh, somebody said, you mean like a plumber? Oh, Michelle.
That's what someone told me. See, I didn't even know anything about it because I started asking questions, and they're saying a lot of people know that's what was going on.
Only a plumber would know how to do that. A lot of people are saying. And someone cleaned her apartment, right? Deadbolted the doors, wiped down the peephole, the door, the back window that was lost, and cleaned up.
And I was told the jurors cannot think like the way you guys was thinking of giving, like analyzing things. No, they have to go based on what is given, what evidence is given. So.
Well, that's true too. They're not supposed to do any outside research. And many of them may not have known about this case at all, because you told me that, or somebody told me that some of the jury was very young.
Yeah, the age range was like from 20 something all the way to 73. I say 73. The guy was an older guy, looked like he was retired. But majority that stayed were younger. It was a younger crowd.
And so they wouldn't have even known about this case because they would have been little kids when it happened. They probably knew nothing about it.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at how 11 Alive covered. No, this is Atlanta News First, I think. Okay.
Now at 4, a jury reached a verdict in the 2001 death of UGA law student Tara Baker. It is a cold case that has loomed over Athens, and DNA evidence was the major break in this case.
Atlanta News First senior reporter Patrick Quinn is live outside the Athens Clarke County Courthouse. And Patrick, emotions running high for the family of Baker and the defendant found guilty on all the charges.
Was that the courthouse that he's standing in front of? I'm sorry, but that looks like a funeral parlor to me. That awning makes it look like a funeral parlor. Oh man.
That's on the other side.
Running high for the family of Baker and the
major break in this case.
Atlanta News First senior reporter Patrick Quinn is live outside the Athens Clarke County Courthouse. And Patrick, emotions running high for the family of Baker and the defendant found guilty on all the charges.
Tracy, a lot of emotions outside the courthouse here in Athens. The family of the defendant, Edrick Faust, found guilty on all 12 charges. They were in tears walking out of the courtroom today. They believe that the jury got the wrong guy. Meanwhile, the family of Tara Baker, it's been 25 years since her death. They were obviously very relieved to hear this verdict. They say that Faust, that guilty verdict is because of two things: his DNA and his proximity to the scene. Edrick Faust in the striped shirt, stone-faced and solemn as the verdict read aloud.
Malice murder, guilty.
Faust found guilty on all 12 charges, including murder, rape, and arson, and the death of 23-year-old UGA law student Tara Baker.
Justice is the truth. And while this verdict will never bring Tara Baker back, what it will do is remind families all across this state and all across this country that have cold cases that their case can be solved, that DNA can lead to an arrest and a conviction.
Cameron J., the spokesperson for the...
This is one of my biggest fears too. And Lauren's backstage, I'm going to bring her up, is that this could open the floodgates to now the GBI cold case unit thinking they've got a slam dunk and they're going to start all of a sudden solving all of these cold cases with this bogus DNA evidence. And that's a really, really slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
Baker family celebrated the verdict. It's been 25
cases that their case can be solved, that DNA can lead to an arrest and a conviction.
Cameron J., the spokesperson for the Baker family, celebrated the verdict. It's been 25 years since Tara Baker was killed in her apartment in East Athens. Investigators found after her death, the apartment was intentionally set on fire. Edrick Faust was arrested in 2024 after investigators, through forensic evidence, connected his DNA to the scene of the killing. The jury today reviewed a 2024 interview where Faust heard from GBI officials of his DNA connection to Tara's death.
My DNA! Man.
That to me was, I'm going to bring Lauren up. Hi, Lauren. Come on.
Hi. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Sylvia.
Hi, Lauren.
This is Lauren Vellucci, private investigator. She's got a channel on YouTube too called Common Sense Investigator. I've linked both ladies' channels below in the show notes. Please go give them a love and a sub, because this to me was most telling.
Yeah.
How did the jury react? Lauren, were you there the day that they were showing this video?
I was not. No.
Sylvia, you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Were they watching it intently? Were they kind of nodding off? Were they paying
No, they
attention?
was watching. They were watching. They were watching.
This to me, when he screamed my DNA, I was just like, that's not a guilty man. What did you guys think?
Language, by the body language, the way he was like, he was shocked that the possibility of his DNA being in there. Oh, that's not possible, but okay.
And my thought on him saying, take me to jail, is he was calling their bluff. He knows like they're allowed to lie. So that's how I took it. Because if they didn't really have anything and his DNA, they could just be saying that. So that's how I took it.
Let's hear that again.
From GBI officials of his DNA connection to Tara's death.
My DNA! Man, it's been a long time. We've made so many advancements and things. If you can help us understand why your DNA is in that house.
After the verdict was read,
it wasn't in the house. It was in her body, which was in the house. Semantics. They're allowed to lie. But he even said that on the stand. And when he tried to walk it back on the stand, it came across to me as being so disingenuous. How did the jury react to that when he was like, well, you know, it was on her body and her body was in the house?
They just sat there. They were just sitting there, just looking. I didn't think the jury was going to put guilty. I felt there was somebody going to be a hung jury. That's the way I felt. The way, I mean, even there was some I knew was because they were not like, okay, this is crap. That's why they had to go through certain things to convince the ones that was not convinced. And they won them over.
That's what I thought too. That was my gut, you know? Do you know who this woman is who's about to speak?
That's the cousin to Faust.
Okay.
Faust.
Faust's family.
Why your DNA's in that house?
After the verdict was read, Faust's family in tears.
This is wrong. When I tell you this is wrong, there's no other way to explain it. You let a man walk free that you know who did this to your daughter. He has his life. Now my cousin don't.
Faust's attorneys argued Tara Baker's boyfriend at the time, Chris Melton, was responsible for her death. Some watching this case play out, like Karen Lisk from Gainesville, felt the jury was misguided.
This is
Karen's a cupcake. Karen's a cupcake. Karen, you got on TV.
Like Karen Lisk from Gainesville, felt the jury was misguided.
This is To Kill a Mockingbird is what this is. This is injustice, okay? Injustice. This man is innocent.
More than 2 decades after the death of Tara Baker, her family feels this verdict is a step towards justice.
She was a champion of the underdog, and she was a champion of justice as a law student. So how remarkable it is today that after 25 years, that justice has now been realized for her.
It's not justice.
No, it's not.
Tara Baker was just 23 years old. Now, what's next for Edrick Faust? Today, we heard the verdict. On Thursday will be the sentencing, right back here at the Athens Clarke County Courthouse.
We'll
From
be
Athens,
here.
Patrick Quinn, Atlanta News First.
Yeah. Why? Guess why he's the only happy one?
Because he's been covering it from the beginning. So
He was so inappropriate too. Like, I realize he's like invested, but he's a podcaster. He's not a family member. He was like this the whole time when the prosecution was like doing their closing. I mean, it was very distracting. He was right across the aisle from me. But of course, I'm sure if that was on the other side, the judge would have said something and admonished them.
Lauren, for those in the chat who aren't familiar with you and your work and what you do, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about what you do and not too much personal information because there's crazy people, but I mean, you know that.
Yes. So I'm a private investigator. I do many things with that, but my passion is missing persons cases. I'm also a regular on with Vinnie Politan on closing arguments. And I just am a trial watcher. And like many others, saw this case on Melanie and it pissed me off enough to drive up to Georgia and go to it. So
wow. He's happy because his podcast is now going to do better and maybe he'll get a book deal or a movie deal or some kind of deal. What do you guys feel about any talk? Just go talk. My head is spinning. What do you got? Lauren, what were your observations from inside the courtroom? How many days were you there?
I came the day that Mr. Cruz's wife was in the hospital. So that day was a wash. And then I also was there for what ended up being closing arguments. So I too, like Sylvia and the other cupcakes, first thought that one juror who's very expressive was completely for the prosecution. I then changed my mind a little bit because she was reactive on both sides. So I'm like, maybe that's just her. But when they brought the jury out to announce basically that the defense had rested, her facial expression, I kid you not, was like this. Then she put her hand over her face and just sat there and then sunk down in her seat. And I was like, great. Like, that tells me they don't like understand that they don't have to put on a defense. She didn't get that. So I didn't like that at all.
What was her age range?
30s. Yeah.
30s.
I think, I mean, you were there for the closings. Were people as enraptured in person for Ahmaud Cruz's closing as we were at home, like on the edge of our seats? Like 2 hours really kind of flew by. I kind of thought an hour and a half was enough, but Then he had to hammer home on the reasonable doubt, and he had to hammer home on find him not guilty for this, and this. What was your reaction and the jury's reaction to his closing?
I loved it. I mean, I was enamored. There were certain parts that I got a physical reaction to, like tingles, like it was good. It was so good. Everyone afterwards that's what we were talking about, was how great it was. And the jury was fixed. I mean, they were paying attention. The ones that took notes, the note takers were taking notes. So it wasn't like they were tuned out. They were paying attention. I personally, just from statements that he made even in the closing, such as, we chose you guys for a reason, we picked people who follow the rules. I think there was probably one person on that jury who had a strong personality, was an alpha, and I think there was probably 10 or 11 followers on the jury who went along with it and didn't push anything. They didn't question it. That's my personal opinion.
I think they didn't really understand the severity of a person's life. It was like nothing to them. That's the way I saw it. Because there was a couple of them, like during testimony, it seemed like they weren't even paying attention. I'm just being totally honest with what I saw. And I was like, okay, this is a jurist. But I did feel that it was a very good, diverse occupation type of thing, because it was from different ranges. And I felt, now the one they got rid of, I was more comfortable with her. Remember the one that sat in the front?
Yes.
So did they pick the alternates at the end? Because the way that I heard it going in, I heard it was 8 men and 4 women. So I thought that they chose that the alternates knew they were alternates going in. Or did they choose them after the case was over? They would have done it in open court. So you would have seen them picking the bingo balls out.
I wasn't there for that, so I couldn't even tell you. I don't know.
I was told by the law clerks people that they picked them before. So
So they knew going into the trial they were going to be alternates, which, has, it's also detrimental, because they're like, some of those people don't pay attention because they're like, I'm not going to get to deliberate anyway, right? You started talking about their occupations, Sylvia. What do you know anything about? What do you know about their?
I've heard one was a retired UGA professor. I've heard that. I heard that there were some, I guess, somebody in the medical field in there. I wasn't there for that part, but from other people who's been there, who's taken note, they were giving me the different diagram, I can't even say the area that they're from. The thing also, when I came in, because I had my mind in a certain way from watching your show and everything, right? And then I went and did my little homework of checking his background, and I saw the large in and out of jail. Then I went through and I saw a lot of it was not following through with his probation, right? And then I saw some selling of yayo, right?
It was the yayo.
Yeah, yayo. He's selling the yayo.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I was like, and then I saw the supposedly fight that he had with this person, and then I talked to the person whose father represented him in that case, where he only had a year in jail.
Caroline, she's in the chat sometimes, yeah.
And so I felt that it was stacked against him from the beginning, and I was trying to figure out, why was Judge Lott allowed to stay on this case when she was the judge in some of those other cases?
Right.
So I was like, how do you do that? Because most of the time, usually a judge would recuse themselves from that case and let somebody else handle it. So I just felt it was already done for him, but I stayed optimistic, right? I was hoping at least a hung jury. That's what I was hoping for, because when I saw the face of those particular jurors, I was like, he's done. That I mean, walking in, that's how I felt. But I still was hopeful. I was hopeful for at least a hung jury.
Lauren, thoughts?
I don't know how we got here, because they're just, I may feel a completely different way that he is completely innocent, but those of people who may not agree, like there was reasonable doubt all day long in every aspect of it. And I just don't understand how something one point of it didn't resonate with someone enough to find it. I don't know. It's beyond me.
I would always tell juries, you don't leave your common sense at the door, right? We all come into this with different life experiences and different socioeconomic backgrounds and different friends and family and different, things that have happened to us in our life. But you don't leave your common sense at the door, and you're entitled to use that as a juror, and you should use that as a juror. And how can they come to guilty on burglary when there's no forced entry and no DNA evidence in that house showing that he was ever even in that house?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't supposed to solve a mystery about whether Chris Melton did it or not, but wasn't there enough reasonable doubt about whether or not Chris Melton did to make it a not guilty?
I had someone on my live yesterday to call in, and she said that she felt that it was guilty. So I wanted to know why she felt he was guilty. And what she said on the live was that they didn't explain. Defense did not explain how his DNA got in there. Then I tried to explain to her that certain things, like the Mexican restaurant and things like that, they were not allowed to bring that in. She says, well, maybe he should have said it during opening or closing. I said, well, he wasn't allowed to do that, So that's why I felt he should have at least brought an expert to explain certain things like that, saying that DNA can be had from going to a restaurant where the cup's dirty, and how sometimes you go to a restaurant, there's like lipstick on the thing. You can get somebody's DNA from that lipstick being on that cup. I mean, there's so many different ways of getting DNA, and he needed to bring at least an expert just to say that, and just left it alone. But
right, Lauren, what do you think?
Do you guys know if there was pretrial motions filed to try to bring in some sort of expert? Because I could see her just being like, no, and just saying you can't do it, because half of her judgments were like that.
According to what I asked, there were like 4 witnesses that were supposed to show up. 2 were supposed to be on WebEx. I don't know if the others were professionals or expert or not. I don't know.
Okay.
There's such a huge pretrial record that I haven't been through everything, and I don't see it like jumping out at me, but they did move to exclude the pure gold DNA stuff. That was denied. I mean, we've seen some Daubert hearings in our time, right? Anybody who watches trials has seen Daubert hearings. In the Karen Reed case, they made a woman who has 40 years of experience as a medical doctor in not only prisons and emergency rooms and has treated, I don't know how many tens of thousands of patients. They made her fly in from Florida for 2 full days of Daubert hearings. This woman was clearly an expert. I'm sorry, but this young girl who came in from Pure Gold DNA from California was very young, very inexperienced. That's presumptive testing anyway. And in my opinion, she never should have been qualified as an expert. That was a huge misstep. Could be an appellate issue. Were you there for that day? Either one of you when she testified?
Yeah, I was there.
Was anybody just sort of like shaking their head like, how's this girl? Right.
They didn't shake their head at all. Mm-mm.
She had testified once before in a Colorado court, and she was not even in that particular specialty of Lugal's iodine testing.
But they relied everything on the DNA report. I mean, when I tell you, because remember, they got all the reports at first, right? I think it was about 8 to 12 pages or something like that. And they were going line by line. And then they asked for the 167, and that's the one that showed it was inconclusive or something like that. I'm like, I thought there was hope when I heard them talking about that one. I was like, okay, that's a good sign. And then the verdict was like not guilty on all counts. That's what I can't get. On all 12 count, guilty. I can't get that. I don't understand it.
They couldn't show that he was in the house. I still can't get past that. There was nothing in the house to indicate that he was ever there. He lived, his stepmother lived 585 feet away. He didn't live there all the time. They were going to bring in that woman. There was a woman in the pretrial motions. I can't think of her name right now. But it was like his girlfriend for a while. They were going to bring her in. And they didn't wind up calling her. They didn't wind up calling the jailhouse snitch that there was a lot of pretrial stuff about. What's your take on the DNA, Lauren?
So I could get it if it was sperm. It wasn't sperm. Like they needed to bring someone in, but I don't know what they did to try to get someone in. Like I question everything with this judge. I just do. Like she was hellbent on not letting them present a case or a defense for him. But I think if they could have explained that, but like not all DNA is the same, and I think they really needed to bring someone in to make that jump from. But at the same time, if he's raping her, there's going to be sperm. Like it even, and then the fact that there's other sperm. Like, how are you comfortable sending a man to jail for the rest of his life when there is sperm of another man there in areas that he said shouldn't be? I don't.
Didn't Liz say his DNA was supposed to be there because that was his girlfriend? Like, that was one of the most insanely misogynistic things that I've ever heard an expert say. This woman, before she went to work in the cold case unit, worked on child sex crimes.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Child sex trafficking. And she's getting up there and swearing in front of God and the world that if a man is your boyfriend, then his DNA belongs there. And that's okay. Knowing nothing about domestic partner violence, I was horrified by that.
Yeah. I heard what Sylvia said earlier, and to echo that, Liz during closings was laughing, rolling her eyes, shifting from one side of a chair to the other side of the chair, texting rapidly, and just making an absolute spectacle. And she's right there by the jury. Mm-hmm. And that particular juror was always looking at her. And then she would look and look down, and then others would look at that juror, and then they would look at Liz again. She could not take the heat, but she was making an absolute spectacle of herself.
That's distracting to everyone in the courtroom and disrespectful.
Yes.
You know what I was trying to figure? Because someone told me that in the filing they had the juror's name out, so maybe that's why they did that.
What do you mean?
They had this. So according to someone that's been in the record, they said the jurors that was on the jury name was on the actual record.
Oh wow!
Already? Wow.
They said it was out. I haven't seen it, so I don't know. But someone said the jurors' names was out there already.
I mean, typically a defense team and a prosecution team will do like their due diligence, right, on jurors. Lauren, I don't know as part of your work if you've ever done any, jury consulting or like any law firm has ever had you look into the jurors, but their socials are scoured.
Yes, they absolutely should be, 100%, and they should be scoured during the trial as well. So, there's just so many things that I wonder about this case. I can't believe that we didn't at least have a hung jury. I was shocked.
Do you think it hurt them that they didn't put on a case?
Yeah.
From her reaction, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, and Monday morning quarterbacking is a thing. Does it make it an easier appeal to say ineffective assistance of counsel if they don't put on a defense? And maybe that was a strategy. I don't know. But I mean, they were pretty much, halted at every turn on everything that they tried to bring into this case. And they made a motion to disqualify Judge Lott before the trial. That was denied by another judge. And so many things that were not allowed in. And I feel like he wasn't really able to defend himself. The only way that he could have said, I have never met that woman, I didn't know that woman, would have been to testify.
And they should have showed him a picture that was so from 25 years ago. How is he supposed to know exactly? Like, that is, I thought Mr. Cruz nailed that, though. I mean, he put it right there where it needs to be. That was why they purposely didn't show a picture. So he couldn't remember anything. He had to just go off of the girl. I mean, that's insane. I just, so many things were mishandled in this case, in my opinion, from the judge to the prosecutors to an actual investigation on, there's multiple people, multiple really good suspects, not just Chris, that was never fully investigated from day one to when the cold case had it. Neither of them did anything.
Right. Bridget says, no Tara's DNA in her own mouth, but only E's DNA planted, in my opinion. The testimony was all over the place because one of the witnesses said that there were some fractions in the DNA. One fraction was hers. Fraction number 2 was his. Fraction number 3, maybe Chris Melton. It was so confusing that I had trouble keeping track of that DNA evidence. I didn't make a chart. I didn't do any of that stuff. I want to go back and listen to it all again, but I just fear this is really going to be a slippery slope for cold cases moving forward, and that scares the death out of me, because how hard is it to defend against a case that happened 25 years ago? You're not going to remember where you exactly were on that day. Thanks, Bridget.
It should scare all of us because it could be anyone.
Ashton Sugar says that Cruz should have restated what reasonable doubt was again at the very end of his closing. I thought he did. Did he not?
I just think the jurors had their mind made up, and it was nothing for us to do because it's clearly there was not enough evidence for them to even convict, so it didn't matter.
It's just so hard to wrap your head around if you're a person with common sense and a person who feels these things so deeply, like so many of these viewers do that were so passionate about this case. Ashley says, Sylvia, do you think any of the jurors were not guilty during the trial or deliberations, and why wouldn't they stand up for the not guilty?
I think they were pressured, and it didn't seem, maybe it was 1 or 2 that was holding out, and they didn't, because I told you where the guy said, where the woman told the guy, relax. She was rubbing his shoulder, just relax. And he's the one that had that paper, and he was going line by line. He was looking at that DNA. He was going line by line. He was so slow in it. He had it in his hand for a while. And this is the one I didn't think that was like, he took a lot of notes. And I didn't think that he was on the prosecution side or defense. I just felt he was one of those people that's very thorough. And so when the one I'm going to call troublesome, just for a lack of word right now, the troublesome one was the one that rubbed and told him to relax. And then he just not nonchalant, no emotion. So I think they were trying to convince him. And one other one. And I thought that Hispanic guy was against it too. So, but I don't know. I
well, that's what, I love sarcasm said earlier. Did you finish what you wanted to say about the Hispanic juror?
Oh, I was saying how when he was the one talking to the rest of them. And I felt that, I mean, I didn't hear the conversation, but his body movement, how he was like talking, and he was standing up and they were all sitting down because when the lady opened up the door, I saw it. And he was just talking to them. And so I was like, maybe he's the one going to try and convince them that it's not guilty. This is what I'm thinking, right? This is me thinking. I don't know for facts. I'm just, from my visual of he's seeing him and his mouth movement, I'm thinking there's one thing. And so he even told the bailiff, we're not ready yet. That's what he told the bailiff before they came out. Because that's when Cruz had asked the judge to say the same statement she said for the other things, and she didn't say it for after they watched that video. And so when they came back, they had a question number 5, and that's when they came back out. And then that's when the judge repeated what she said about don't put too much focus on that particular detail of that part of the case. Take it as a whole totality, the whole thing, not just that part. Don't put too much weight on that. So, and they were really trying, I think they was trying to convince the two. That's just my opinion.
That's what Here for the Tea said, that someone on Facebook said the jury was 10-2, that someone had to Armstrong the other two or strong arm the other two. Have we heard about this? That's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you from the two individual, it was that I felt it was a Hispanic guy and the older white guy in the back. And those are the two that was the focus that I that's why he read the DNA really, really slow. Because he took forever with that DNA. That's what we're waiting on. He was going line by line. You saw his finger going like this. So
somebody must have been trying to explain to him why, and he wanted to really look at that evidence really closely to either confirm or deny what that person was trying to convince him of.
Yeah.
Scorp says, please discuss the alleged law enforcement on the jury. How did Sylvia come to that opinion, please?
I said the one that was more state. I didn't say law enforcement. I said that that was more state because, I mean, remember how her head moving? She was like, you could see she was just like nodding her head, like, and like when someone was on a witness stand and the state was asking a question and the person was explaining something and she was like, I mean, it's like, okay. And then when the defense was up, it wasn't, you saw some movement, but not as nodding as the other ones. I was like, okay.
I think, that was my fear. And I kept saying it the whole entire time that there could at least be just one juror, just one, who thinks that DNA is the gold standard and that all of these tests are rock solid. And that if his DNA is there, that means he did it. End of story.
I think too, along with what everyone is saying, like jurors don't know. They usually love the judge. They just think the judge is great and they don't know and they don't have anything to compare them to. So for the judge to talk so demeaning to Mr. Cruz, to talk down to him, to never, I mean, I think there was like one or two that she actually like sustained an objection to and basically that's not the state of law or whatever. How does the jury not pick up on that and then think, oh, well, this guy must not know what he's doing. They don't know. And then with how disgusting the DA treated him and that so many things that the DA said during closing was inappropriate, in my opinion, should have never, ever happened.
But you know what, Mel, let me tell you, I saw a different judge when she was doing her regular cases. I was like, is this the same judge? Wait a minute, she's so sweet, so nice. I'm like, huh? When she was doing her regular calendar calls.
Right. So she did them in the same room.
Yeah. She seemed such an amazing judge. She was so thoughtful, so caring towards the defendants and stuff. I'm like, is this the same judge? Why is she so mean with this one? But then I said, okay, maybe she has an issue with the outside person coming in. You're not part of the Athens area.
Right. You big city Atlanta guy.
Yeah, you're an outsider. So no outsider come in here and shine on us. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Right.
So, because I'm telling you, she was so sweet. I was like, is this the same judge? I can't believe this. She was really, really compassionate, very thoughtful of the defendants and stuff. Because there was one guy that did it on WebEx and he didn't understand what his lawyer was saying. And the lawyer was trying to brush him off. And she was like, no, he needs to understand what's going on. We do have time to talk to him. And then she was focusing on the defendant saying, do you want to talk to your lawyer? Do you want to do that? And I'm like, is this the same judge?
Somebody says here, Venus Blue says that's true. I saw a lot of people on Facebook saying that Lot saved their lives.
Yes.
It felt to me, looking at it from home, that they really just every chance they got between Yalaman Chili and the judge, they were always, and I don't know if the jury was there for any of this, saying, well, let me understand if I understand what your objection is, Mr. Cruz. Like they were trying to make him seem inexperienced, not understanding procedure, having no idea what case law is. This man had cases with him for every single thing that he argued, and he pulled up statutes and he read the law into the record. He made a great appellate record. I just felt like they really, we called it Chris-splaining at one point because everyone's trying to explain away Chris Melton's alibi and all of his other nonsense. But I thought that they were obviously very, they degraded him and I didn't like it at all.
But
was the jury there for any of that?
But let me tell you something. Now, you know me, I'm very neutral in everything. So I'm going to tell y'all everything that I see. Okay, y'all. Wait. I think he irritated the judge when he kept telling the judge, well, I think the jury, do you think the jury could take a break right now? The judge didn't like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
She did not like that. It was like, okay, I run this courtroom. You can't tell me when they put when the jury could go for lunch or when the jury could take a break.
Maybe he had to go to the bathroom. Did you ever think of that, Judge?
The day that his wife went to the hospital, there's a lot of like squabbling about this on social media, but I heard him say to the judge, my wife was rushed to the hospital today.
Mhm.
And people are like, that's not what he said. And then there's a lot of people out there like, she wasn't in the hospital. Like, I don't know where the people come from or where they get their opinions from, but
she was rushed to the hospital.
Rushed, right? He did say rushed.
Yeah, she was rushed to the hospital.
You think he would make that up?
No, the judge was very sympathetic with him too on that.
Gave them the whole next day off,
Yeah.
right? Because of that reason.
Yeah.
I know that she just had a baby like around Thanksgiving time. So I hope she's okay and I hope everything's fine. But a lawyer wouldn't make that up in open court and make that statement. That's just gross that people would even say that. Law Congress expressed that the state mislabeled the DNA. You can't trust the DNA. And this is what I'm thinking. So they had 2 oral swabs. And we were listening to some day 3 testimony while we were waiting for the verdict. And there was she was from the GBI crime lab. She testified on day 3 about 2 oral swabs. And there were 2 oral swabs. And she kept saying 2 oral swabs. So why wouldn't they take 2 oral swabs? And perhaps they lost the vaginal swabs. They only had a vaginal smear. So if they took both those oral swabs and sent them to California, or by mistake, one of Edrick's buccal swabs got put into an envelope that said Tara Baker on it, maybe it would only come back with his DNA on it.
Yes.
But you know,
Thoughts?
but he also I can't say his name. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't say the guy's name. Now
Which
I'm
one?
gonna type it up. The
Llama
prosecutor.
Llama
I don't want to mess up the man's name, but I can't say his name. But
Yama. You could just call him Yama.
Yama went and said that the DNA was her vagina. His sperm was in her vagina or something like that. I was like, that's misleading.
There was no sperm ever found.
No,
right?
But he said the sperm. He did say it.
Right. And he said it in his closing too, didn't he?
And that's why there was a loud outburst because the people got upset at what he said, and that's when the judge, reprimanded the people in the gallery for making noise.
Could be another appellate issue, but I mean, appeals take forever, years and years and years. And there's a guy by the name of Colin. Wait, hold on, because I start a comment here. Colin Miller, who has said on Twitter that he wants to jump in and try and help. And DB says he doesn't help in trials. The cases he's helped with and covered have all been appeals. He's helped with several exonerations. I'm glad he's offering to help. And I think he has offered to help pro bono, which is amazing.
I did see that. To go, to go on what Sylvia was saying earlier, I was told by one of the family and friends that was there that's when Mr. Mr. Faust was charged. He couldn't get a attorney to take his case in Athens. No one wanted to touch it. And so when Mr. Cruz agreed to take it, I don't know how that kind of came about, but I would love to know more about that. When he took his case, people were not happy. And so I think Sylvia was exactly right. The judge probably does not like him coming into her courtroom.
Yeah.
And he was a private attorney, right? He was paid by the family. I don't think he was a public defender for this case.
I don't think he was either.
He wasn't a public defender. The other thing, the judge kind of liked Mr. Hill. So why didn't he let Mr. Hill do some cross-examination?
Exactly. He filed a notice of appearance, so he became part of the defense team at some point during the trial, even though he was sitting there the whole time. I don't know. Maybe he was there to put on the defense case, and then maybe at the last minute when they decided not to put a case on, then he didn't get the opportunity to do anything.
But sometimes it's best to, like bad cop, good cop type of thing. Put somebody else on that somebody might like. You know what I mean? Because most of the time jurors, they gravitate to who they like. They may not did not like Cruz because of his, they didn't like his demeanor or something like that, because I did see they were annoyed at him a couple of times. So maybe if they would have put Hill there, I'm just going from the emotion, because people, they do emotion stuff here, right? Bring somebody in here who's handsome and very easygoing, like, you know what I mean? I'm just,
I mean,
Well,
God.
Sorry, Mr. Hill. It's interesting you say that. Mr. Hill, I noticed he disappeared when they were going over the jury instructions and what would be on that form. Mr. Hill was gone for that entire thing. So I maybe that was the case. And then when they didn't present a case, he wasn't seen.
And I think that Yama was totally shocked and taken aback when they didn't put a case on. And I think he wasn't ready. He was not ready to do his closing. That's why he was not there for the charge conference. And that is why his first initial opening sucked. It sucked.
It did.
Yes.
I was like, what? This is not, I mean, his closing, I'm sorry. His first little portion of, what is this? It wasn't even a closing argument.
And the introduction to the defense.
The way it works in real court is that the rebuttal from the state is supposed to just address the things that the defense said. It's not supposed to be your whole original closing. He was clearly not ready, and he was clearly furiously taking notes during Cruz's closing? Because I think he wrote his entire closing during Cruz's closing, or in the time when the charge conference went on.
I wasn't paying attention.
Doing it. That's what he was doing. I was watching him.
He was.
Yeah.
Did you see this tweet from Governor Brian Kemp? Glad to see that at long last, justice has been secured for Tara Baker, for her incredibly brave family and friends who have endured decades of suffering, and for the UGA community that Tara loved. May her memory continue to inspire and strengthen other families searching for hope. 80% of my audience says they do not engage on Twitter, but if you do, go for the comments. Go for the comments, because he's getting killed in the he's getting killed in the comments.
Oh, good. I love that for him.
Yeah. I feel like some other people feel as well that this whole thing, where was that comment? Rami said this shady case was to get funding for the BS Baker Act. Fellow black men must be ready to legally defend at all times 24/7. Georgia Supreme Court is going to rip this conviction to shreds. Then 1983 claim soon.
But you know what I say, Mel, if it wasn't for you, the world would have not been paying attention.
Other people covered it too, no?
No,
not like you.
Not like you, because you were a champion of fairness, and the stuff is bull. You know what I mean? I saw that coming from you. Everybody else was tiptoeing around it, not really like going full force. You were in there, and I felt they were watching you.
I fell into this case. I saw there was a new trial starting that Monday. I was like, I needed something to cover. I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. It's a cold case. Never having any clue that this was going to be To Kill a Mockingbird come to life. So I really didn't know what I was getting into when I started to cover it. And I always say, like, the only thing that happens when I sit on a fence is I get splinters, and I don't want splinters. Like, I'm not going to be up here and not tell you what I really think. And I was so outraged by this, and I couldn't believe that it wasn't getting more coverage. I mean, God rest Nancy Guthrie's soul, or if she's alive, I hope that they find her. But the fact that the overwhelming people on YouTube were watching nothing happen in that case instead of watching this real life lynching of a man who may have had consensual relations with Tara Baker, but the judge didn't want anybody to know about that. Are we still like in the 1950s? I'm just heartbroken over the whole thing.
Yeah. And the old guy that I talked to yesterday, and he was saying that in Athens County, black men do not have a chance at all.
Oh my God. It's heartbreaking.
He said he served 20 years for a case he did not do.
The Georgia Innocence Project takes on a lot of cases. And this is, I don't know how they would fare with this one, but I don't know. Like the time for the help on this case would have been pre-trial, would have been before this man was convicted, because if he did not do this, he will sit in jail in prison for a very long time.
But they also use his past as a reason for the possibility is great.
Yeah, let me put this up because I found this article from 2024, and it's all about his prior history. Let's get it up here. So this is UGA cold case. Man arrested for student's murder has a long criminal history. And this was published May 10th of 2024. And those were Edrick's mugshots at the time. And then they go on to say, and this was in 2024. At this time, it's not known whether Faust and Baker knew each other before her murder, and the GBI has not disclosed what led them to Faust. And then, of course, right away, tainting the jury as soon as this arrest is made, Faust served several years in prison. According to records obtained by Fox 5 Atlanta from the Georgia Department of Corrections, Faust was incarcerated between August 21, 1997 and July 20th of 1999. I don't know what that was for.
The 1997 one?
Yeah.
Most of them was D-Rug, Yo-Yo. Yeah.
I also thought that maybe his father has the same name because there were some other Edrick Faust in the court records that with a different date of birth.
Yeah, older. Yes, I saw that too.
And somebody wrote an email to me and said, listen, I'm from there, okay? The Faust family was well known to law enforcement. When they needed to pin something on somebody, that's where they went. Like, that's wild to me, but completely believable at the same time.
Because dad birthday was 1942, I think, something like that.
Could have been his dad, right?
And he's 1975.
Right. And he said his dad was all over. I remember when he was questioned about that during his interrogation, when he was asked about his real mom. So you weren't real close with your real mom because you used to visit your stepmom. It was such a weird line of questioning that was just showed such bias, like, well, where's your real mom? You're not close to her?
Yeah.
It says here he was also incarcerated between May 1 of 2001 and May 28 of 2003. That may have been for the knife incident, the bar fight incident, but I don't think he was in jail that whole entire time.
No, he wasn't. That knife thing, he only served 12 months.
That was the one that Caroline's dad represented him in, right? She said he got time served and a little bit of time.
Yeah.
It says here, a search of the Athens Clarke County court website also returned records for numerous arrests and probation violations dating back to at least 2001. It says in 96, he was sentenced to 1 year for criminal trespassing in Oglethorpe County and another year for simple battery. In 93, he received a 2-year sentence for attempted robbery in Oglethorpe County. Like, that could have been his dad. I don't know.
I didn't think robbery was his. It was drunk. I mean, I know he was drunk driving, and I know he gave false name at one point. He didn't give his name. He gave somebody else's name, and the rest was just yayo stuff, selling.
Yeah, that incident that happened 2 weeks after Tara Baker's murder was this one, the 2001. Aggravated assault after allegedly attacking another man with a knife, initially pleading not guilty and demanding a speedy trial. He eventually accepted a plea deal on September 6, 2001, and was sentenced to 6 years of probation with 1 year of confinement. My question to you is this also, if he was convicted of that felony and he did time for that felony, his DNA would have went into CODIS in 2001. Yeah, why did they not get a hit in CODIS until 2024? Lauren, I see you nodding furiously.
No, and that's exactly right. There's so many things that don't make sense at all. That would have gone in.
They claimed that they continued testing the DNA. They were doing some more interviews around 2008, around the 10-year anniversary of her death. Why didn't they get a hit sooner? It makes no sense. And maybe they could have had a police procedures expert in to discuss that as well. Like the Michael Easter that they wanted to have in the Karen Reed trial to talk about why the investigation went bad, what they did wrong, how you're supposed to investigate a cold case. Maybe that would have helped. But experts are really expensive. I don't think people understand how expensive experts are.
Yeah.
And if they didn't have the funds, look, Karen Reed was very lucky. She had the funds and she raised a lot of money and people donated a lot of money to her. Without that, I don't think she would have been acquitted because people don't come in with their common sense. And then there's possession of cocaine with intent to distribute, reckless driving. A lot of these were driving offenses and possession offenses and DUIs, and then, violations of probation. And I don't really know. Here's one that says in 2019, a case report out of Jacksonville, Florida indicates that he was charged with battery resulting in bodily harm in a domestic violence case. After being arrested on July 7th, the charges were dropped. 2022, he was arrested for simple battery, disorderly conduct, and criminal trespass. I mean, none of this stuff came in, and it shouldn't have. But does that change your opinion about whether or not you think either he did this or there was reasonable doubt?
No, because this was a personal crime, and it just was. And also, like, there's usually lead ups to this. You don't just go from like drug charges, possession charges, DUIs, things like that to the brutality of this type of a crime. You just don't.
And then the way everything was done, cleaning up the house and all that, it was somebody that knew her.
People in the chat are saying, and I don't know these two names, but they're saying, talk about Anthony Little. I don't know what this says. Talk about Anthony Little, and then the Roche says that, and then talk about Mike Haynes, Anthony Little, the lawyer.
I can tell you about Mike Haynes. Mike Haynes is the person that was part of the isn't that the judges? I thought it was Doug Haynes. I didn't think it was Mike Haynes.
Mike Gaines. Oh, that's what somebody's saying. Mike Gaines. Okay, so Mike Gaines. I believe that there was a senator.
That's the judge's husband. He's an ex-senator.
There was somebody there was a Gaines, I think, in the courtroom, like hugging people. That's the judge's husband?
Yeah.
Is his name Doug?
Doug Gaines.
Yeah, that funny story about Doug, if you want it.
Yeah, sure.
That's the one where he was trying to hit a 16-year-old, and he ended up. There was a road rage situation.
Oh,
right. Hold on.
I don't know about that.
Someone sent it to me, and I researched it and found out because he's part of the Legal Watch Athens or something like that. Legal Watch, something like that.
What was your funny story, Lauren?
So, right when I got there, we were out waiting to go into the courtroom and met the cupcakes. We were talking. This guy walks by. Karen, she's very friendly and sweet. So she was like, "You look so familiar. Like, what's your name?" to Doug. And he was like, he just looked at her and she's like, "Yeah, you look really familiar. What's your name?" And he's like, "Doug." And she's like, "Oh." And he's like, I was in 2 movies. And walks into the bathroom. And it was just like we were like, oh, okay, well, Doug wasn't very friendly. And then come to find out, we talked to someone who was there with Mr. Cruz, and he was like, that's the judge's husband.
This is a different guy. This is Houston Gaines. Well, Houston Gaines is a state representative. And look what he posted yesterday. So I don't know who Mike Gaines is. I don't know if he was ever a suspect here, but Houston Gaines, who's a representative, posted this yesterday on his Facebook. Today, a Clarke County jury found Edrick Faust guilty on all counts in the murder of Tara Baker. Working alongside Tara's family, I was honored to pass the Coleman-Baker Act to establish a cold case unit and create a process for reinvestigating unsolved homicides. This legislation helped bring us to this moment. While nothing can bring Tara back, today's verdict brings long overdue justice for her family and accountability for the man responsible. So this is him. I don't know if you saw him in the courtroom.
Yeah, in the courtroom. I saw that guy.
He was there, right? And he's a state representative.
Yeah, one time. I saw him one time. I don't know about him being there all day.
Wow. Well, if there's a connection to the family, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah. Who's Anthony Little? Was that the lawyer from her law firm? I don't know who that is.
So I found this post on the Free Edrick Faust Facebook page, and someone was asking about Anthony Little, and someone named Mandy Joe was on there, and she said that Anthony Little is from Athens, and apparently he bragged about red rumming Tara.
Oh,
And at the time, her dad was a Clarke County deputy, and she told her dad about it because apparently Anthony told them, and he had to tell his supervisor. And then a lot of the cops thought that Anthony did it for a very long time. And her dad told her to stay away from him. And then she said Anthony's girlfriend at the time ended up with the laptop at some point.
what?
What?
And this is, yes, according to Mandy Joe on Facebook. And then she said the girl who had her apartment, so apparently his girlfriend that apparently had the laptop at some time burned down the apartment that burned. So Anthony's girlfriend that burned down the apartment was killed by police years later. But apparently the guy doing the podcast conveniently deleted those episodes. He interviewed the girl whose apartment was subsequently burned down and now acts like it wasn't important. So there is so many.
Wait, the girl, her apartment burned down too? The girl that was killed? Not Tara.
She also burned down an Athens apartment. This was Anthony's girlfriend who had the laptop at some point.
Another arson.
Yeah, now she's the one who's passed away, right?
Yes.
Did she die in that fire?
She was.
She set the fire?
The cops, apparently there was an incident, mental health incident with the cops, and that's how she died.
Another fire.
I don't know. She doesn't get into like exactly how the fire fits in, but there was some fire. But
there's so much more to this case. There's and the fact that we got to watch it live and you guys were there live is wild to me because a lot happened in Delphi too, but it wasn't public. Nobody could.
But if something comes out and they find proof of this stuff here, can it be overturned right away, or do you have to wait through the whole process?
It's a process.
Oh,
it's a process. I mean, just like what if they find like if there was some other unknown male contributor? The problem is they did such a crappy investigation from the beginning. Right? There were 15 to 20 firefighters and people trampling all over that scene. How did that investigator bring one of Tara's earrings outside for Melton to identify her and took a picture of her? That was all weird. That's not supposed to be the way it's supposed to be. Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, that's what a lot of people think is that the defense should have called a DNA expert. Noni wants to know if Edrick knew or knows how much support he has.
Yes. Mr. Cruz personally told me he knows he has a lot of people that are supporting him from all over. He told him about the cupcakes. So they both, Mr. Faust and Mr. Cruz, all very much know that there's an army behind him and very much appreciate it.
Sylvia, did you have any conversations with the attorneys or the family or Edrick's family or anything?
I talked to the Edrick's family.
That you feel comfortable sharing?
Some things, no.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever you feel like, did they feel like they were supported? I felt like from hearing from both of you that he had a lot of support in the courtroom.
Definitely. He had a lot of support in the courtroom. But it seems as if it's one of those towns where everybody stick together.
Yeah. Sarah says, by the way, from the last expert, Tara was not on any of her DNA swabs. I found that to be confusing, that they were separating fractions and there was some unknown DNA, but there was never any sperm confirmed, right?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Karen said his fiance picked him. I'm not sure what you mean, Karen. His fiance
picked crew.
Picked the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You guys have any questions for our panelists tonight before I let them go because they've given me so much of their time already? What about 2 buccal swabs in one bag, A and B? Weird to me.
Never should have happened.
Right. Any final thoughts, ladies, before we wrap?
Well, I am still in that emotional stage, and I still don't understand what happened. It is the time when I lean on my faith, asking God why, and will I ever get the answer? Probably not, but there are some good things that did come out of it, and I got a chance to meet Mel and the rest, everyone else, and also the fight is not over with, and I believe we could still make the noise, still have the voices heard, and let them know, hey, we're not going to stand there and let this happen to anyone else, So I'm still in it. I'm still.
Oh yeah, I'm not shutting up about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna still do it. But it's scary being in the courtroom and then they go and look up your background because they went and looked up my background.
Yeah,
like,
what was that all about? I saw your show. I was watching like in and out last night, your show, and I saw a part where they made you go up to the podium in open court.
When I filed the Rule 22, the state went in and checked. First, they was checking to see if my business was real, right? Then they checked the case that I did before, because I've done a lot of cases. And the YSL case is the case that most people know me from, because I did that one for 2 years, right? I was in the courtroom every day. And during my case reviews, I started giving nicknames to the jurors instead of using their real name. And someone contacted the judge and told the judge that I was giving nicknames to the jurors, and the judge felt it was inappropriate because I was giving names like Glasses, SpongeBob, Twister. I was giving just weird names. You wouldn't even figure out who's who, right?
Right, because we didn't see them.
So the judge said that was a mean girl type of stuff, and I shouldn't be doing it because it's not with integrity, and I stopped. I didn't do it anymore. So they went in, and I guess they did a piece on me. One of those news stations did a piece on me, and that's where they looked that up and said, oh, I was disruptive in the case before. So that's where that's from.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
by the way, that happens all the time. They named one of the jurors, I believe it was like Casey Anthony or Peterson, strawberry shortcake. Like that happens all the time. News stations, like
that's where I got it from. I was like, the news people could do it. Okay, I could do it too. But
yes.
And then she restricted where I couldn't even get in your chat and type in your chats. That's why I was like, I can't. My hands tied. I can't say anything. So when people would ask me a question, that would be the first question: what does the juror's face look like? What are they doing? And I couldn't say anything. I was like, okay.
I remember one day she was talking about everyone, okay, all media, hand your passes in at the end of the day, so I'll give them back to you the next day. Was that after you got your pass, and had they been handing out passes before then?
They weren't giving out passes. What happened is they couldn't differentiate who was media and who wasn't. So they started having us to wear these badges that they made up at the last minute. So when we walk in, because if you're media, you can go in at any time. You have a little bit more leeway in the courtroom. You can bring your phone in. You can have your phone. You could text and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why I do Rule 22. But this Rule 22 was a disadvantage because all I could have did is just like get out the courtroom, go and type and go into your chat and say, hey, this is what's happening. Come back in, go back out. Y'all could have did it that way. It would have been easier. But having a Rule 22 made me like to a point where I was like handcuffed. I couldn't do anything. So.
Rhonda says, do you think when they arrested Edrick and gave him water is when they got his DNA? No, I'll tell you when they got it, because I just looked at this pre-trial motion last night. They got a warrant based on a probable cause affidavit that Liz signed, getting all of his location data from his phone for like a week-long period. And they followed him around to make a traffic stop. And they made a traffic stop for something he really didn't do. Maybe it was like a broken brake light or tinting on his windows, and they made him blow into a breathalyzer, and that's how they got his saliva sample. And there was a motion made pre-trial. Cruz argued, illegal search and seizure and no probable cause, and that's how they got his DNA. And of course, the judge, and fears to the poisonous tree, and the judge denied it.
Wow!
But to think that they can get your location data from your phone and literally just follow you around based on your phone's location data with no probable cause is wild.
Thank you for saying something. Okay, I got a question. Mm-hmm. Back in the days, in 2012, 2001, you used to use cell phones, and they used to have cell phone towers and things. Why did it not allow the cell phone evidence to come in?
I don't know which cell phone evidence it was. Was it Edrick's cell phone evidence?
Any of them. They wouldn't let him in. But my thing, that will give you some concrete evidence of whether or not he was in that area, because it would ping off the tower.
I don't think it still exists from 2001. I mean, my guys in the chat, you guys are experts on just about everything. Sprint is out of business. That's what it was also, that he had Sprint at the time.
They still keep that, because I used to work for Verizon. They still keep that evidence.
They still have the location data from 2001, you think?
They have all of that. They keep it. They keep it for years. Because they put it on like a one of those big like a microfiche type of thing, and they send it off where it's like it's protected from fire, storm, and things like that. They keep it for years and years.
I'm gonna have to go and read that motion pre-trial, because I know they did try and get some phone records.
Yeah,
in.
look, somebody said 1999 case, they used towers. Yep, they have it. But remember, she refused to let phone calls in.
Yeah. I wonder.
Yeah, Adnan, that was the case that this Colin Miller helped overturn, right?
Syed.
Yeah. That's what Carrie's saying. They had it in 1999. It could have proven that he was not in the area at the time. It's so hard to prove a negative, right?
Yeah. And then the thing is, he was a drug dealer. Most drug dealers had cell phones.
And pagers.
Yeah. 2001, yeah. 2001, they had cell phones, because my daughter was born in 1999 and cell phone was really used.
Gwen wants to know, can you please ask, so how long Liz and Jeremy, I don't know why I keep calling him Jeremy. How long Liz and Jeremy were up front with the prosecutor?
All the time. All the time. Liz was there. I mean, she controlled the whole courtroom. That's my opinion. I felt that she was the girl, and she was happy.
Final thoughts, Lauren.
I'm just disappointed. I don't know if we'll hear from them, but I would be very interested to see how they saw things. I saw things very different. And I do feel like Mr. Cruz made a great record, and there were so many things that the judge and the DA did that for me is an issue. And I really hope that it does come back on appeal, and that doesn't help anyone right now, but that's the one thing that we can kind of hold out for and just get this case out there more. And just a thanks to you for introducing it to me and everyone else, and then sticking with it, because I wouldn't know about it if it wasn't from you. So I thank you for putting it out there for everyone.
I really, really, really thought we were going to get a different ending. Like, I felt it in my gut. I'm like, there's no way he's not acquitted. Yeah. How can we support now, says Melissa. Thoughts? Spread the word about this story. More people need to be talking about it. More people need to be looking at it.
And write to the congressperson. That's what people always do. Talk to Congress. They don't want to make the laws and stuff like that. They need to tighten up that Tara Baker law. Baker Cup, what is it called?
The Coleman-Baker Act.
They need to tighten it up.
I just don't even feel like that applies here. Like, that's the thing. Like, that law is great for where it applies, but like, just didn't feel it was this case.
No, because there was no corroborating evidence. It was really the only thing was the DNA, and it was only on her body. And they can't use it as a shield and a sword. They can't say, well, the DNA in her mouth would have lasted, what did they say, 12 hours? But the DNA could have been drainage, but it can only last 5 days. So, Chris, you could change your story. We got to explain your DNA away. We got to explain your DNA away. Like, that in of itself made me think, like, there's no way they could find this guy guilty.
I need Tara to bring her ghost and steal somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel like she was such a champion for justice. She was such a warrior of justice. She would not be happy with this result.
Yeah.
And something like, just when I was talking to the family, like, they want justice for her too. But like, this is not justice. They need to find the killer to figure out who did it for her too. And that's something they are very determined to do as well. Like, they want it. It's not just to,
So did you get the feeling? Did you get the feeling from talking to Tara's family that they don't think they got the right guy?
Oh no, I didn't talk to Tara's family. They were like surrounded by the advocate and all they were had security, all of that. But Edrick's family, they want justice for her too, and they know it's not by him being convicted.
Yeah,
Sylvia, any thoughts? Any thoughts on Tara's family about whether you think or you feel, just your gut, whether they think they got the right guy?
I believe that her mom, I mean, she's a precious woman and she's a sweet woman. And to me, from her facial expression, I don't feel that she feels that justice has been served.
So sad all around. This is not a good ending. You did tell me at one point that you thought you saw some students, or maybe I heard you talking about it on your show, or one of you guys talking about it on your show, that you saw some students in there, like time and again. Wonder what the students think of this trial, or did you get any gut feeling from them or speak to any of them?
I didn't speak to any of them, but I saw the news people when I was in the media room. Some of them was talking and they felt that they said that they wouldn't want a jury trial because these people seems different.
Somebody also told me that the media bought the Faust family pizza one day.
No, they bought everybody pizza, not just them.
Oh, they bought it for everybody.
Yeah,
okay.
They were all there late and they bought pizza for everyone.
Very nice. All right, I'm going to let you guys go so I can go over the super chats and so you don't have to sit here. But thank you so much. I love you both.
Thank you.
You're invaluable to justice and being boots on the ground and giving us all of the vibes from inside the courtroom, because it's so important to get vibes. I mean, same thing when I went to the Karen Reed trial, the one day I was there, I got such different vibes in person from the judge than I did watching her on TV.
Yeah,
in person, in the courtroom, she's a much nicer woman. She comes across very differently on television. And, I'm a big, vibes are everything, and thank you for being there. Thank you for taking time out of your lives to go there and stand up for justice. And hopefully we can figure out what to do next for Edrick.
Thank you for being you, Mel. Yes. I appreciate you.
I love you.
Bye, guys. Bye, Sylvia. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wasn't that great? Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. Norman said, sorry about the horrible verdict, Melanie. Yesterday, I could see how devastating it was for you. It hurts my soul. It hurts my soul to see injustice like this. It just does. I'm an empath. Thank you for your 10. And I think a lot of you are too. Teresa says, I'm disgusted by this verdict. I haven't stopped bursting into tears. I told my daughter who lives in Dubai, she was extremely sad. I feel I'm helpless. Thank you, everyone. I think you found your people, because I think a lot of people feel that way too. And it's sort of like, what do we do now? And like I've been telling you, since Karen Reed's case ended, if anybody can get stuff done, it's you guys. There are so many more people out there, so many defendants who need our help. And our help is needed before there's a conviction. And I feel like I jumped into this late. I didn't know about it, but we're here now and we're not going to shut up. And you can post every ugly picture of me that you can find on Twitter and you're still not going to shut me up. Okay. So go on with your bad selves, but I'm here for justice and I don't care about these idiots. And don't let anybody scare you away from it either, because that's what they want to do. Willie says, thanks, Melanie, for your service and having no quit. Thanks for your 20, Willie Brown. I love sarcasm says, I think including CODIS and having the officer up there to introduce the mugshot right before the mugshot was stipulated to was too prejudicial. I agree with you. I think them being allowed to use CODIS, to say CODIS, was highly prejudicial to the defendant. Because most people who follow true crime know what CODIS is. Okay, so by saying we got a hit in CODIS, you're telling the jury, without telling the jury, that Edrick Faust is a convicted felon. And I think that was highly prejudicial, and I agree. Remember, Judge Canoni wouldn't even let them say the 3 letters of FBI in that trial. Charlie says, after Karen Reed's 2 trials and all the shenanigans by the state, I was not surprised by the guilty verdict. I really was. I really was. I thought there was so much reasonable doubt. So much reasonable doubt. But I just feel like there are some people who think the guy's sitting in the chair, he must be guilty. I mean, he was in CODIS. I mean, that looks like a mugshot, so he probably did it, but probably isn't enough. It is the highest burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is why the defendant is not required to say anything or do anything or even put on a case at all. Thanks, Charlie, for tuning in from Australia. Judy said, please consider going over the pretrial motions. I did a whole show on pretrial motions. It was on a weekend. And I think it says, I forget the title of the show, but it's in the playlist. The playlist is linked below. We went over several of them. There are some more that I may want to go over at a different time. But if you missed that one, Judy, go check it out. Charlie said, look at the time, money, and resources it took to keep Karen Read out of jail. Right. Right. So, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Wealthy defendants have an advantage. If they can raise the money and they have homes to sell and 401ks to liquidate and parents who have money and lawyers who are willing to work for free in the end, like Bob Alessi did, they've got a better shot because experts are expensive. And remember what they said about Karen Read. If she takes a plea, it's over. If not, it's a whole other episode. And they wanted Faust to take a plea. In fact, they offered him a plea. We went over the plea in the same show that I did about the pretrial motions. And the plea was right. They offered him this plea in writing. It's part of the court file. They offered him life with possibility of parole if he would plead guilty to everything. And he said no. Thanks for your super chat. Full Throat Emotion said, you know who else lived nearby and had DNA at the scene? Chris Melton. David Reese said, the only verdict that affected me as much was Ashley Benefield. A lot of people are still killing me for my opinions on Ashley Benefield, but I think those are people who don't understand domestic violence and don't understand that leaving is the hardest time. And I mean, the thing about Ashley Benefield was that there was no question that she killed Doug, right? There was no question that she killed him. It's just, was she justified? Was she in fear for her life at the time that she killed him? And there was a big split on that and very diverse opinions. Thank you, David. Here, we can't even prove, they couldn't even prove that Edrick was even in the house. Thanks, Melinda, for your super sticker. And, showing that the drone footage of his stepmother living 5,000 feet away when he was living with another woman at the time. He may have been visiting her now and then. Black man walking. I mean, that was their evidence. Some people saw a black man walking, and there was a sketch artist who sketched some sketches that some people say looks just like him, and some people say looks nothing like him. Charlie said, just like the Karen Read trial state, if we throw enough shit at the wall, something's sure to stick. Venus Blue said, Liz is disrespectful. His DNA is supposed to be there. I cannot unhear that. It makes my tummy sick. I'm sad for Faust, Tara, and my city. Scott says, Scott McGinnis, I wouldn't be surprised that there are many layers to this big picture politics and connections. The verdict is nonsensical. Nania King says, after this and the Karen Read trial, I do not trust our judicial system or picking random idiots for a jury. I've cried and cursed at the TV. This is effing sick. Jury selection is one of the most important parts of any trial. Any trial lawyer will tell you that. It is so important. So important. A defendant can choose a bench trial. We saw a bench trial in the Penny McGee trial that we watched. She was acquitted by Judge Cannoni. That was some sham of a prosecution too. And so I don't know what the answer is. Certain European countries have professional jurors. I think that's not necessarily a great thing either, right? It's not a perfect system, but they say it's the best system in the world that we have here in the U.S. Charlie says, was Cruz angry enough? When? In his closing, during his... I found him to be very polite to the judge, the jury, and everyone. I found him to be a true gentleman. I don't think that you need to be angry to get your point across. And I also don't think that's his nature. I don't think that's his style. A guy like Alan Jackson, that's his style. He gets angry and it's effective for him. But Ahmaud Cruz knew going into this, all of the battles that he had fought just getting to the trial stage, just getting into the courtroom in front of a jury, and he couldn't risk it with this judge. And I also don't think that that's his style. Thanks, Charlie. Jody said, I tried sending a super chat, but I had to edit out Athens County for it to be approved. That's weird. I hope that E owns that place eventually. I don't know. I just don't know. Let me show you our guest for tomorrow. One moment. Here we go. Marie Pereira is going to come on with me tomorrow to watch the sentencing. And if you don't know who she is, I think you're going to like her. But I think most of you might know who she is from her appearances on Court TV and Law and Crime and everywhere else. And I've been a big fan of hers. And it's so interesting because I watched this on Court TV last night. And I was going to reach out to her today. And she reached out to me. And I'm like, girl, you got to come on my show. And so she's coming tomorrow. Here you go. Here's her appearance last night or yesterday, I guess, during the verdict on Court TV.
Interrogation of the defendant. What do you read into that? Wanting to monitor Edrick Faust? Do you think they were looking for trying to convince maybe a juror or two who were thinking that he was not guilty? Because 11 hours, 30 minutes is past that moment. You know, they went through everything great, but that's now to the point where not everybody's on board, one could opine. Your thoughts on that request this morning?
Wait, 11 hours and 30 minutes. I mean, they spent many of those hours rewatching or re-listening to the testimony of Bill Ricketts. So I wouldn't really consider that part of the deliberation. Okay.
I guess they wanted to see what his demeanor was during the interrogation. And there might have been one person holding out, and maybe they needed to see if he was lying based on his body chemistry and what have you. But I think that, again, they got it wrong because there were so many areas of reasonable doubt. It was the ex-boyfriend who had the means, motive, and opportunity. And there was also an issue with the alibi of the ex-boyfriend, where he was at the time. And the ex-boyfriend tried to make it seem like they had this wonderful relationship, when in fact it wasn't even all that wonderful. They were in undergrad in another state. He was supposed to be a pre-med student. He flunked out. She moved to Georgia to go to law school, and he followed her.
That's right.
They had an opportunity to live together, and the girl ended up living by herself because she didn't want him anymore. She signed up to be with a pre-med student. He flunked out of school, and she was flourishing in law school and didn't want any parts of him. That's a motive right there. But when they interviewed him, he tried to pretend like they had this perfect relationship. Why lie about it? There was so much confirmation bias. They ruled him out, and the case just sat down for all these years. And then when they created this new cold case, they had to pull somebody in, and they pulled him in. There was enough reasonable doubt there to show that it wasn't him. The DNA was tainted. It was a DNA intensive case, and their DNA was not on point. They opened up an envelope, for God's sake, and it was empty. They had interviews with the boyfriend where they basically told him what he needed to do to be excluded. There was so much messy policing there, not to say what happened, because no one really knows what happened, but the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, and I feel like they did not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But the attorneys for the defendant, Ahmad Cruz, and his crew did a great job that they even had 11 hours of deliberation, and the jurors really thought about what they were doing, and they didn't take it lightly, but I don't think they got this case right.
The confirmation bias did work against the boyfriend during the initial investigation. They thought he did it. They wanted him prosecuted, but the evidence at the time for the prosecuting attorney wasn't there in their estimation, and so it sat cold. The trigger was...
Wait, who's they? Who's they that wanted Melton prosecuted? You mean the investigators? And then the DA chose not to charge him? That's a little bit interesting. I don't know that anybody wanted Melton charged. Maybe they did, and maybe there is something political going on here. Her name is Marie Pereira. She's an attorney. She's a New Yorker. And she's on Court TV and Law and Crime a lot.
They look back, and then the re-examining any DNA and retesting, that's when Faust comes into play. How would, how would any DNA from a stranger end up in her apartment?
It wasn't in her
What's the
apartment.
explanation for that? Because
It wasn't in her apartment. That is why a lot of the mainstream media is getting this wrong. The DNA of Edrick Faust was not in her apartment at all. Chris Melton's DNA was on the murder weapon, the power cord that was used to strangle her, on the transponder. And everything else was wiped off. The only DNA on the knife was Tara Baker's blood. His hands. They took pictures of his hands 2 days later. Like it was like he beat the bejesus out of someone. She was also severely beaten. Chris Melton's hands, that is. They spent most of the entire trial defending Chris Melton. Sound familiar?
that's what the jury hung on to, right? That's why they came back guilty at the end of the day, even though you're right. I mean, we sat here before the verdict came down and we thought to ourselves, 99% of our verdicts at Court TV are guilty. This one, we were all here at Court TV listening and watching very closely because we didn't know. We didn't know which way this was going to go after 11 and a half hours. But
wait, really? Even Julie Grant? Wait, I haven't seen Julie. I don't look for her stuff, but do you think Julie Grant really thought they were going to get a not guilty on this? Okay, that's interesting. Even the law and crime poll that we looked at yesterday, I forget what their final number was, but usually they're like 98% guilty, 2% not guilty. Even the law and crime poll had something like over 30% not guilty, right?
At the end of the day, it was DNA. As faulty as the investigation may have gone, that's what this jury had to have held on to, right? Because there was no relationship between these two.
We don't know if
we
there
don't
was.
know because he never took the stand to really testify as to whether or not there was a consensual situation or not. But the point is, this was a DNA almost 100% reliant case. And this was basically a whodunit where he claims it wasn't him. And they had a suspect that they considered and then just cleared out of nowhere. And then they chose him. But there was enough circumstantial evidence there to create reasonable doubt because the boyfriend had means, motive, and opportunity. He was almost a jilted boyfriend. She was leaving him. She walked away from him. She went away to college. He flunked out and he followed her to her Georgia state where she was in law school. And when she got there, she wasn't even checking for him like that. And that's the reason why this happened. I believe he is the third party culprit. I believe maybe he might have gotten away with something, but we respect the verdict of the jurors. I just don't think that they got it right because beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. And I think with all of the problems with the DNA, the boyfriend's alibi, it should have been enough to say you haven't proven your case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the standard. We're not saying anyone is innocent 100%, but there's a standard. And I really don't think the district attorney proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. There was enough there for the jurors. They could have gone another way.
All right. Absolutely. Fair enough.
That's Marie. She's going to be here tomorrow with us for sentencing. And Carrie says, my kind of gal. Tammy says, I remember when this first happened in 2001, almost immediately they dropped everything regarding Meltdown, washed their hands. It was in your face that he did it. Yeah, even the family felt like, I think I think I've heard from a lot of people who know the family that they thought it was the lawyer. But there were other suspects that the defense was not allowed to bring up. The only one that they could talk about as a third-party culprit was Chris Meltdown. And I don't know. I wish I could explain this to better to you guys, but I'm still reeling from it. Thank you, Elaine, for your very generous 100. She says heartbroken in Oklahoma. Roberta, thank you very much for your Venmo. She says this Mr. Faust verdict is sounding like Grisham, a runaway jury. Maybe Liz had something on a juror's family member and used it. I don't know. I'm not going to go that far to suggest that there was jury tampering at this point because I have no evidence of that. And it's not something that I would loosely make a any sort of allegation about. But remember, look what happened to Murdoch. Look at what happened to Murdoch. After the Murdoch verdict, that is when the defense team found out about Becky Hill, the court clerk, who tampered with the jury. And I'll tell you something, no matter if you think that Alec Murdoch is 100% guilty or not, in my opinion, after watching the Supreme Court arguments, I do think he's going to get a new trial. I do. Based on the tampering by Becky Hill. And I'm here for it. And if Alec Murdoch has another trial and he does not testify and all of the evidence about the financial crimes does not come in, it could be a very different result. And he very well may be 100% guilty. Right? Every defendant is entitled to a fair trial. That's our system. Every defendant. Kathy says, what do you think about no lawyers in Athens wanting to take the case? I think that's interesting. They have to practice there. Maybe it's a very small county. Maybe it's a very small town. She's the chief judge. She's the head judge. And I don't think that that's highly unusual. I don't know what to think about it. If there's any Athens lawyers in the chat, or Law Mama 4, if you're here and you have thoughts on that, let us know. Law Mama 4 did go to law school with Tara Baker. She's an attorney now. And so sometimes you can't, pee where you eat, as they say, and it could be risky. They had to bring somebody in from Atlanta. He was a big city guy. He was not used to this small town BS, right? That's why we have a BS button. Thank you, Pretty Tony, for becoming a member. You're so pretty. Sean Wilson is saying that they killed Marie in the comments on this On Court TV channel. Yeah, I used to go on Court TV when I started covering the Karen Reed case. I went on Court TV, and they put me with Jennifer Coffendorfer a couple of times, and boy, did she make me try and make me look like an idiot. And then I went out and found Garrett Wing, the dog bite expert, and the rest is history. But I don't like that. I don't like how Court TV allows their guests to be excoriated in the comments and then they leave the comments up. I think it's disrespectful. Okay. Nobody gets paid to go on Court TV. This is not a gig. And so why would anybody want to go on there if they're going to let people roast you? Not even roast you. Like they're cruel, the comments, and they just let them hang out there. That's why that's why they have. I'm just going to leave it there. Nick says, hi, Nick. If not, thank you for your sweet email. I didn't even have a chance to respond to you because I've just been really in a funk since this happened. I'm gutted by this. If not already addressed, the Georgia Shield law statute does not have an opening the door exception, making the 412 motion necessary. He had made one 412 motion prior to trial in January about Chris Melton. But isn't the rape shield law essentially, isn't the purpose of it to protect living victims, maybe mostly? Like, our girl's has to come in and testify at her own rape trial, and the defense is not allowed to point out things like, oh, she dressed like a slut, she deserved it. Or, oh, look, she'd been with 10 other guys that week, she deserved it. I don't know. I think they need to carve out certain exceptions. And we looked at the statute, and there should be an opening the door exception, don't you think? I mean, the fact that he was fined $1,000 and held in contempt in his opening statement for saying that Chris Melton said when he was told that there was other male DNA on Tara Baker's privates, oh, she must have been with somebody else. Like, that was his concern. To me, that goes more to Chris Melton's credibility and consciousness of guilt than it does Tara Baker's reputation. I disagreed with that ruling. I thank you very much, Nick. Let me know what your thoughts on that ruling were. Google Anthony Little, Athens, Georgia. He's deceased. No relation. All right, hang on. Well, I'm getting a whole bunch of obituaries. I see a booking. But he died in 2018. Can you give me a little bit more information just so I don't have to sift anymore through Google? Should I put Tara Baker in there too? Hold on. Did they scrub the internet of any connection between this guy and Tara Baker? That's what it looks like. I mean, I always thought that it was possible that there could have been a relationship or a one-night stand between Tara and Edrick, and that Chris Melton found out about it and he wanted to punish her, and that was his way of punishing her. Thanks, Mika. But he couldn't testify that he had any contact with her unless, I mean, he couldn't, there was no other way to show it except for his testimony. Hi, Candy. We replayed that about 5 times. A lot of people are split on whether Chris Melton said, I didn't want them to see the devastation I caused, or I didn't want them to see the devastation it caused. A lot of people felt like it was self-snitching. I do wish that Bruce Rivers would do a video on it. Criminal lawyer Bruce Rivers. All right, so you guys go jump into the Anthony Little rabbit hole. I don't know anything about it. Heather says, I don't think the judge was applying the law correctly in this case. And Nick's here, and he says, Nick Starro says it should, but current statute has none. It doesn't matter if there are other charges. Carmen knows your address. These jurors clearly have no idea what reasonable doubt is. I think it's a big problem in a lot of cases. There should be, juror school. Here in New York, when you go in for jury duty, they show you a video, but they don't really teach you what reasonable doubt is. And I don't know. My heart is really just very heavy with this verdict. Very heavy. Sarah says, I also believe if the defense put a case on, the state was going to bring in the ex-girlfriend who has memory problems and the jailhouse snitch for rebuttal, which is why I think the defense rethought it. Yeah. She wasn't the most credible witness. And there was a lot with her testimony in the pretrial motions. After she found out that he was being considered for Tara Baker's murder, she all of a sudden made allegations that he had beaten her, and all that stuff was new. It was too risky. I think you're right, Sarah. And Nick, if you're still here, and Mastad, if you're still here, let me know what you think about the defense not putting on a case. And if you think it hurt them. Mama She, thanks for today's great show. I'm heartbroken and outraged over this verdict. Thank you, Mama She. I love you so very much. Love you so very much. You're such a kind and sweet contributor to the channel. Robin says, only Chris's DNA was in the house and on the murder weapon, and his pubic hair was in her buttocks. I didn't know anything about the plumbing being missing. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. The pipes under the sink were missing. Who would know how to do that? A plumber who may have washed their hands in the sink and had blood on them. A plumber. And known how to do that. Mastad said in Massachusetts, the reasonable doubt jury instruction took years to craft and is very clear. Tiff says, did they sleep during Chris Melton's testimony? I have no idea how they found Mr. Faust guilty. I love sarcasm says the ex-girlfriend would have stated that he lived with her. Yeah, but she had other testimony that was not going to be good. KBD said, and there was absolutely nothing of follow-up with Nash. They used Josh to defend Chris's timeline, and Josh couldn't remember anything. Creating Through Chaos says, I think Tara was out the night before and may have gotten a birthday kiss from Faust, and I think Chris was stalking her and saw it. That's interesting. Shoota's telling me that it was 51% not guilty on long crime. That's the most close poll that I think I've ever seen on long crime. Aquarius Rising says, I loved Ashley's testimony. She was honest and she didn't let Cruz bully her. She's also married to Chris's best friend and is still friends with Chris. So, and she's the only one, I think. I'm not going to dox the jurors, and I would not suggest that anyone do that. And so I think Ashley's testimony was a little bit biased. And also, explain to me this. How is it that there was one hair that was tested for mitochondrial DNA and Ashley and Chris Melton could not be excluded? That's wild to me. Are they related in some way? So I don't know. I thought Valerie's testimony was more compelling. I thought Valerie's testimony was more honest. And I feel like Valerie was telling us everything. KBD said, I heard that others thought that Chris was stalking her and saw her with Faust. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we heard Marie say it. The guy, and I said it during the testimonies that this guy followed her to Athens, chased her down, got a room somewhere. And this guy, a couple days after his borderline fiance's murder, is dating other girls, and he doesn't go to her candlelight vigil, and instead he goes to a country music concert with one of her besties and is rubbing her back at lunch of another bestie of Tara's, and he was just trying to console them because he was the rock for everybody. I found his testimony to be highly telling. The way he was closing, go watch Emily C's video. She nailed it. The way his eyes were closed like most of the entire time, and the way he was talking to himself into the microphone, and the way it was very clear that he was trying to like prevent himself from exploding on the stand. That was not a man who was grieving. And remember, the first questions to him by Cruz were, why didn't you cry? Why didn't you cry? Scorp says, Chris disrespected and humiliated Tara, and the judge ignored that part of Cruz closing. Outrageous. No, this was mitochondrial DNA. So mitochondrial DNA runs on the mother's side. And so all of my children will have my mitochondrial DNA. And so that's not true. Yep. I Love Sarcasm says, Ashley admitted to the police that she didn't want Tara's family to know that what she was saying about Chris. Right. Control himself. Chris was struggling on the stand to do it. Noni's treasure hunt. Treasure house still wants to know, how did he lock the doors? Why didn't he take the diamond earrings? Right. Or any of the antiques that were in her room, or any of the heirloom jewelry. I mean, those of us who watch true crime and or any crime shows on TV know how personal this crime likely was to the perpetrator. And also, if Chris Melton had gotten away, I'm not Chris Melton, if Edrick Faust had gotten away with murder for 25 years, and all of a sudden he's being cuffed and brought down to the station and put in an interrogation room with 2 GBI investigators and told that there's 9 warrants for his arrest, and they Mirandize him and have him sign off on it, and he had committed a murder and an arson and a burglary on Tara Baker 25 years ago, don't you think he would have lawyered up right away? Come on. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. It just doesn't. Yes, agreed, Helen. The fact that everyone on the witness stand, every single witness for the state, right? Because they're the only one, that's the only side that called witnesses. Defense didn't put on a case. Every single witness was allowed to explain their answers on the stand and go off on any tangent they wanted and talk as much as they wanted in detail was garbage too, says Helen. It was a narrative and it shouldn't have been allowed. What? According to this judge, under Georgia law, they're allowed to explain their answers. KBD said Ashley was protecting her husband because they were friends with Chris and still are after all of these years, but she said different to the media when this happened, she said. Yep. State shifted the burden on closing and it worked for them. Was also improper. Oh, Ron, this is an excellent point. Do you think Chris will give an impact statement tomorrow if he shows up? I don't even think he's going to show up. He didn't go to a candlelight vigil. You think he's going to come to the sentencing? I'm very interested, though, to see if Tara's mother and stepfather give impact witness statements and whether or not we're going to be able to tell from their demeanor they think that they got the right guy. Because they had ideas about who it was since since it happened. And if they thought that they knew who it was in 2008 or 2011, and Edrick Faust was never a suspect until 2024, that's not who they thought it was. He would have immediately asked for a lawyer. Right. Trimo says, who texted Chris to go to the police station if Virginia Baker wasn't told anything until that night? Right. We read those articles. She said nobody called her until 7. Didn't he say on the stand that she paged him and he called her? Didn't he say it was Tara's mother who paged him and that he called Tara's mother back? And she said, Chris, they found a body in Tara's apartment or Tara's house. The only car in the driveway is hers. But in the articles we read from back in the day, Virginia Baker was very angry that nobody called her until 7 p.m. And nobody called her to testify. Yep. Her door was Inked Melody Music. Her door was deadbolted. The front door was deadbolted. And the back door was deadbolted. And her bedroom door was also locked. So somebody would have needed to use a key. Carrie says, I don't think they ever got a warrant for her laptop, like emails, AIM messages, could have communications, right? AOL Messenger, right? Why didn't they do that? Jamie says, the guy said he didn't want to see the devastation. Well, right, the devastation that he caused at the freaking court. I know we played it several times in slow motion and everything. Seemed like a slip up to many of you. Great question. Ball Mom to Owen says, if they find out that the jury was threatened or paid or whatever to find him guilty, would it still be appealed or would they throw out the verdict? Well, this is what happened in the Murdaugh case. There has to be a motion for a new trial based on jury tampering. They have hearings, they have motions. It goes up to the highest court like it did on Murdaugh. And then it's a motion for a new trial. But a judge will be the fact finder. A judge will decide whether or not they believe that there was tampering. We saw this also for those of you who followed the Maya Kowalski case with me, that was a civil case out of Florida. They also alleged jury tampering or improper conduct by a juror in that case. And there was hearings and the juror had to come in and they wanted his wife and his communications because they said that the juror's wife was commenting in some Facebook groups and sending super chats. It was wild. So it happens a lot. The motion would be made for a new trial. And then it goes up to the appellate courts if they decide to hear it. And that's what's going on with Murdaugh right now. I don't know how long it's going to take them to render a decision on Murdaugh, but I think he's going to get a new trial based on the way that the appellate judges were questioning the attorneys. Hi, Caroline. Says, I rode the elevator up on day 2 of deliberations with the elderly white lady and the foreperson, and I was mind blown at the verdict, but I remembered my dad always said he never wanted women on the jury because they already voted guilty. That's interesting. So Caroline's dad represented Edrick Faust in 2001 for that knife incident. He is now no longer, but haven't got a whole lot more awesome. And I remember, Caroline, in the beginning, you had a different opinion, right? You had a different opinion. And so your opinion shifted a little bit from watching the trial. Thanks for being here. Charlie said, the law allowing witnesses to waffle on to yes or no answers was so absurd, right? I mean, listen, as lawyers, you're supposed to be able to do your job and get out the evidence that you want to get out from the witness. And if it's a yes or no question, then the witness is supposed to be directed to answer the question, yes or no. It's wild. All right, my friends, final thoughts before we wrap. After I end the stream, it's going to teleport you over to tomorrow's sentencing stream at 2:45. Marie Pereira is going to be with me for that. There's a Karen Reed hearing at 2 about, I don't even know what it's for, because they just had the hearing on the emails. You guys refresh my recollection. Nobody says, would it be Faust's call to rest and not put on a defense? It's discussed with the client for sure. It's the attorney's call in the end, but the defense has a, they talk to their client about it for sure. Lauren's channel is Common Sense Investigator. Both the ladies' channels are linked below this video. You might have to close out your chat to get there. Karen's saying Tara's stepdad, that was Lindsay Baker, passed in 2019. The mom was with her son and 2 daughters. Somebody else was sending me emails. You guys have sent me some incredible emails. And you were telling me, thanks for letting me know. You were telling me that they waited, law enforcement did, until Edrick's stepmother passed to arrest him so that she couldn't confirm his alibi. I don't know how true that is, but I'm just pointing. Zimmy said, and he called the roommates. I would call my partner. Yeah, he didn't call Tara. Right. That's true. He didn't say he did that. He did say he called 411. He called 411 to try and find the roommates' parents' phone numbers. Why not just call the roommates? His whole testimony was sketch. Mom P texted and said, the only man running was white and no black hair. No black hair was found at the home. It was only Caucasian hairs found at the home. There was a white man that people saw in a white t-shirt running away from the backyard. None of those people were called to testify. The only people called to testify said that there was a black man walking around 8 or 8:15, and it was very unusual because he was wearing an orange shirt in bulldog country. He wasn't running or anything, though. He just passed by their cars, and they found it suspicious because maybe they were walking a Walmart, and there's no evidence that it was even Edrick. Emily said it made Chris look so innocent to investigators because he didn't ask for a lawyer, but that didn't extend to Faust, right? Right. And Ray says, how could Faust have possibly pulled this off? No freaking way. Let's make excuses for Chris, though, on every lie he's caught in. Julie said, Chris Melton's news story about soldering burns could have been highlighted better, I think. Was that the first time he ever brought it up on the stand? Lisa said she tweeted this to Kemp. I feel bad for the Bakers losing a daughter, but what you did potentially leaves every black family to lose a son. Irish Mex says, has there ever been a case with everyone on the stand talking about drainage? No, I don't think so. Wendy said 100%. Chris Melton said that Tara's mother paged him in the afternoon. And Becky says, yay, thanks, Melanie, or Benke Sanowski. Yay, thanks, Melanie, for picking up on the DNA fractions. As they testified, they focused on the second fraction only, right? That's the way I took it, but it's all muddled in my head, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to it all again, and somebody's going to need to make a chart. Emily, can you make a chart? Emily's good at charts. And ergo, Sam says, Colin Miller is awesome. He's a law school evidence professor, part of the Undisclosed podcast that helped Adnan Syed. I wasn't familiar with him before, so I'm so happy that you guys are giving him great reviews. And Carrie says, I thought the opposite. I thought women would see through Chris, but I guess that's why her dad is a good lawyer. Catherine's Law says, is there anything attorneys can do to change the system in an effective way? How can they fight the system in some time of league without losing their careers? They're as afraid of the judge. Yeah, especially if you practice in Athens and that's where your practice is based. You might not want to rock the boat. But maybe that rape shield statute has to be tightened up a little bit, and there needs to be exceptions for things like opening the door. because they shouldn't be able to use it as a shield and a sword. Yeah, and the objections in front of the witnesses, that was also crazy. There was a pre-trial motion because this was happening at pretrial evidentiary hearings, and the defense made a motion that asked the judge to please excuse the witnesses from the stand and send them out into the hall when we make our objections about their testimony, so they're not listening to the objections and know how to testify. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Thank you. I live for now. Thank you so much, Melanie, for the stream. I really need to be with fellow cupcakes. I know. I feel like a lot of us were gutted yesterday. There was just so much reasonable doubt. And there are other ways his DNA could have been there. If the DNA evidence was even reliable. And if the chain of custody was accurate. But how are you going to prove a case against yourself 25 years later? It's tough. It's very hard on the defendant. I can see you. Can you not see you? Autodoc said nothing out of the sorts. Nothing of the sorts. As Liz interviewed Faust, he said his stepmom still lived there and his birth mom had just passed. His stepmom had just passed, actually. And his birth mom had passed a couple of years before. His stepmom had just passed something like 6 months ago, he said, and the niece was living there. And I think that he thought when he got pulled over, because there was some sort of dispute about who was going to be able to live in the house, that he thought that's what it was about. Right. And he wasn't even carrying a computer or pipes. This is Animal Love Fest. Same cupcake channel, 1445 cupcake time. Thanks, Mel, Mod Squad, chat, and guests. I love you all with all of my heart. Thank you to the moderators for keeping it classy. And also, Emily, there's been calls for Chris's diary. I don't know if you want to get into that. But, you know, people love to give Emily C, follow her on YouTube as well, ideas of things to do. And Chris Melton's diary would have been a good thing. Maybe even some of the days you could do Yellow and Chili's diary, because that would be entertaining for sure. Oh, Ashley says, at this point, I do not even believe that E's DNA was inside of TB. With the mishandling, etc., I think in order to bolster for the $5 million Coleman Baker, they pinned it on the black guy. Yeah. Emily says, dear diary, I got away with it. And on that note, my friends, as I end this stream, I will teleport you over to tomorrow's stream for sentencing, where we will all convene tomorrow at 2:45 with our new friend, Marie Pereira. She's an attorney. She's awesome. We love Emily too. And I will teleport you there. Just buckle your seatbelts, and hopefully it won't be a bumpy ride. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, moderators. I love you with all of my heart. And I love each and every one of you with all of my heart. And if I don't see you soon, I'm going to die. But I will see you tomorrow for sentencing, where we will weep again. Cass says you could see Edrick knew he was framed. Buckle up, buttercups. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay cool, stay kind, stay classy, and above all, stay safe. It's a jungle out there. Please like the video, subscribe. It's free. Share it. Helps the algorithm. More people need to know about this case. Okay? Peace.